Hello and welcome to the Magpie and Bunny podcast, a podcast where we talk about the things that we can't justify talking about anywhere else. I am a regular civilian who looks a lot like a local millionaire, and for some reason I keep being attacked by what I can only describe as a homeless person wearing tactical gear. I live in constant fear. My name is Bubbles, she, her.
And I am still lost in that whale level. Why does every room look the same? Oh my god, who designed this? My name is Belle. My pronouns are she, her.
And on that note, we are talking about the first Kingdom Hearts game. But first, I do want to say real quick, this is the first episode that we are recording since we actually put out some episodes. I feel like I mentioned that like every single episode, but we recorded the first two episodes at the same time. We released one a week ago, and then we released another one last week. And it's been really cool. There's been a lot more feedback than I was expecting. A lot more people have checked out the podcast, and I think that's really cool. It's cool to see people here, and we've also seen a lot of people in the Discord. It's been cool chatting with everyone. It's been cool getting a lot of feedback, and we're glad you're all enjoying the podcast. We hope y'all keep enjoying it. We might be doing more stuff in the Discord in the future, and that's a good place to keep up to date on any updates that we talk about. So just pushing that up front instead of at the end of the episode like we did last couple of times.
Just if you can't get enough of us, we're around the Discord. That was the most awkward thing I've ever heard you say, and I've heard you say a lot of awkward things.
It's okay, the night is young. Well, it's not young.
It's absolutely not young. I was very late to this recording.
It is past my bedtime. I'm old. I can't be up past 10 o'clock. But here I am. I'm recording this podcast for y'all young whippersnappers. Tonight, at this late hour, we are talking about the... Okay, I always say what year something came out whenever we talk about it.
Kingdom Hearts
like
1 came out in 2002. We're talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Are you sure it was 2002, not 2003?
It was 2002 because it was like super popular. It came out in like September of 2002. I remember this because every single person got that game for Christmas that year.
Okay. Apparently it came out in March, according to Google, but that's probably the Japan release date.
I probably Japan, because
came out in 2002.
In America, I'm pretty sure it came out in September. But 2002 regardless.
Yeah, that makes more sense. That means this came out the same year that Dinotopia did. Speaking of Dinotopia, another thing that we got a lot of feedback on, there's a lot more people who have heard of Dinotopia and have a lot more nostalgic memories for it. And considering that, like I said in our first episode, the only reason that I brought Belle on was because she was the only person who had heard of Dinotopia, I just want to let her know that she's on thin fucking ice.
But I am very easily replaced, but I already knew that, so...
Well, while I'm stuck with her, Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002. I didn't play it till much later. If I'm being totally honest, I actually didn't get into the Kingdom Hearts series until Kingdom Hearts 2. I had to go back and play the rest of it later. Because I know the game...
I am very similar, because I'm almost positive I played Kingdom Hearts 2 before I played Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah, I know Kingdom Hearts, the original game, was very popular, and there was plenty of people who were into it, but, like, the series blew up after Kingdom Hearts 2. We're here to talk about the original game, though, because we were trying to figure out what to talk about this week.
I like collecting the puppies.
Funny you should mention the puppies. So we were frantically looking for what to do for our third week. We were looking to see if there was any like movies or anything coming out that we could take any ideas from. One thing that was coming out was the Disney reboot of Cruella, and we thought, oh, you know, we could like maybe do one of the old 101 Dalmatians movies, maybe one of the TV shows or spin-offs. We decided to do the original Kingdom Hearts game, simply because there is a sub-quest. Side quest. I didn't say a sub-quest. Shut the fuck up. But there is a mini-quest where you have to collect all 99 of the 101 Dalmatian puppies and deliver them to the original 2 Dalmatians. And that is as much of a connection between pop culture and whatever we want to talk about as we're going to get.
the original 2 Dalmatians. Their names are Pongo and Perdita, and you need to show them some respect.
You say I need to show them respect, but watch me not show them respect, and let's see if anything happens.
I respect every single puppy. I know the name of every Dalmatian puppy from that series.
All right, which one is the puppies that? Which one is the puppy that you find in Atlantis in Kingdom Hearts?
That puppy is Wizard. He's the one that goes potty on the floor.
That was a trick question. You actually don't find any of the Dalmatians in Atlantis. I got you on that one.
Well, it's called Atlantica, not Atlantis, just so we're clear. So who's the fake fan now?
We both are. Okay, that's... Glad we're at least on the same page. So, anyways...
We're on the same torn page?
On the same what?
Torn page.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Because
you collect, but I get it.
Collect the torn pages so you can dick around with Winnie the Pooh.
Yes, the Winnie the Pooh side quest is the other most important part of Kingdom Hearts.
Which, there's a lot that I like about Kingdom Hearts 1 over Kingdom Hearts 2, which is already going to get a lot of angry comments. But the Winnie the Pooh minigames are so much better in the second game.
You said the Winnie the Pooh minigames are better in the second game, or did you mean that they are better in the first game?
No, they're better in the second game. Like, I like the first game a lot. Like, I think it has a lot going for it over the second game, even though I know the second game is, like, everybody's favorite. But the Winnie the Pooh minigames are not one of them. Like, they are such a chore to get through.
Yeah, honestly, all the Winnie the Pooh games kind of blend together for me. I can never remember which ones belong in which game.
The second one, in Kingdom Hearts 2, the Winnie the Pooh games are actually very, like, they're fun, and you zoom around, and you collect the honey, and, like, you, like, get flung out of the book and go back into the book, and it's much more interesting. And in the first game, you just have to, like, make sure Tigger doesn't destroy Rabbit's garden, or like, push Winnie the Pooh on a swing, and it's not fun. They're not fun.
I'll take your word for it. I remember every single game that you mentioned, but if you asked me to tell you which one is in which game, I would say ask Belle. I don't fucking know.
You have to ask me, because I remember everything for some reason.
Okay, fine. Which of the 101 Dalmatians do you find in Atlantica?
Hey, Bubbles, do you want to explain what Kingdom Hearts is to the viewers? Because you never introduced what it actually is that we're talking about.
Kingdom Hearts is a game that came out in 2002. It was the first game created by Square Enix before Kingdom Hearts, the company's Squaresoft, and I think it was just Enix or something Enix, I don't remember, but they were two separate companies. But they merged together to form Square Enix, and the first game to be released under that label was Kingdom Hearts.
Mm-hmm. This
was a collaboration.
It was also Tetsuya Nomura's first time directing a video game. His first director's credit is Kingdom Hearts, that's insane.
Okay. So yeah, if you don't know who Tetsuya Nomura is, he's a guy who designed a lot of characters for the Final Fantasy series. Pretty famous designer of characters, but I didn't actually know that this was the first game that he directed.
Yep.
But that makes a lot of sense the more I think about it.
Because I believe the story goes that this was pitched in an elevator.
Oh, I have thoughts about that.
Whether or not that's true, I think they were talking about one of the Mario games. I'm going to say Mario 64, because that seems like the right time frame.
I got this one.
Okay, go.
I got this one. So, Mario came out, Nintendo released, I don't remember the exact name of the Mario game, but it was the first 3D platforming one. I think it was Mario 64.
And that was Mario 64, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that
Unless
came out.
You count the Super Mario RPG, which I do. Mallow is my boy.
Okay. So Mario 64 came out, it did gangbusters, and the people at Square said, we should make a 3D platformer game like that. But then someone said, oh, well, we don't have characters that are popular enough like Mario to sell a game like that. The only people who would be like popular enough to sell a Mario game would be like Disney characters or something like that. However, in I think it was the American offices. The people at Square shared a building with some people who worked at Disney. So there were some people who met in an elevator, and that was where an elevator pitch happened. And as far as the story goes, that's true. But there is something that frustrates me about this because anytime there's a conversation about Kingdom Hearts, people always say, "Wow, it's so crazy to think that this whole thing started because people talked in an elevator." And like every time I hear that, I have to like stop myself from being a pretentious asshole and going, "Well, actually, that's like a very common thing that happens in the game industry. Like it's called an elevator pitch for a reason. Those don't always happen in elevators. Sometimes you just have to give people your quick 1 minute pitch for something while you're standing in line at the cafeteria or whatever. But like it's not super uncommon for really big game pitches to happen in an elevator.
Yeah.
Probably not quite so many that happen in between two big companies, like the company that makes Final Fantasy and the company that makes Disney movies.
I think the more unbelievable thing is that these two like powerhouse companies actually partnered together to make a thing, and it was super successful.
Yes, and that started in an elevator, but then that meeting surely would have led to more meetings in conference rooms.
Of
But the
course.
elevator was where the two companies loved each other very much, and they cuddled together with the lights off, and then the baby that was Kingdom Hearts was formed. Because their hearts were good and pure, and they had really good teamwork, so they high-fived. And that's how babies are made.
So Kingdom Hearts.
Continue.
No, I'm trying to get you back on track from whatever that tangent was.
I refuse, but okay. So Square and Enix started working together. There was a big. This is a pretty well documented. I mean, I feel like there's nothing I can say, and as far as this part of the setup goes, that isn't like mostly common knowledge. But like there was some work done to decide like who the main character of Kingdom Hearts would be, or like how it would work and everything like that. There was some people who wanted Mickey Mouse to be the main character. Some people wanted Donald Duck to be the main character. Eventually, they formed an original character named Sora, who you would play as.
And Disney specifically did not want Mickey Mouse to be the main character. Like they were the ones that were against that idea because Mickey's their flagship baby. They don't want him swinging a sword around.
Yes. Speaking of swords, though, that's one of my favorite things about the Kingdom Hearts series is the Keyblade, because I feel like that's like super original for a weapon design. Like I'd never. I wonder who looked at a key and thought, you know what, this could be a sword. I'm gonna make this a sword in a video game.
I mean, I think at first, a lot of the concept designs had Sora. Sora looked much more like a Disney
like a lion or
anthropomorphic character. Yeah, he was like a little cat or something like that, or a monkey or something. But the sword
he was a cat boy.
Yeah, and the sword looked more like a chainsaw before they decided that it was going to be a giant key.
Yes, and the key is probably my favorite part of the game. Honestly, if the weapon wasn't so cool, and if the Keyblades didn't look so cool, I might not have gotten as hard into Kingdom Hearts as I did.
Okay. I mean, I do like the lore, I guess, behind it, where in order to change your Keyblade, they're not actually a bunch of separate weapons. They're just one. It's like one weapon that you hold, and it's the key chain on them that Sora collects, and when he changes it out, it changes to a different Keyblade with a different effect. I don't know if that's ever been animated in one of the games, but that's what happens. He collects the key chains.
That is a fun little touch, yeah. I think it's a thing, though, because in Kingdom Hearts 3, you can change your Keyblade in the middle of a fight, and like there's definitely no like animations where like he's switching keychains or anything like that, and there's not like 3 keychains hanging off your key, but Oh well, not
Yeah,
something we have to worry too much about when we're talking about the original Kingdom Hearts game.
that's true. We're talking about OG 2002 clunky fighting. Waka's gonna throw a ball at you, and it's gonna be great.
We are throwing shade at some of the Kingdom Hearts games though, because like you said that you prefer Kingdom Hearts original recipe to Kingdom Hearts 2. And if I'm being honest with you, in a lot of ways, I agree with that.
I mean, I don't. I want to choose my words carefully because Kingdom Hearts 2 is what Kingdom Hearts fans like to treat as like the holy grail of action RPGs. But I really like how Kingdom Hearts 1 sets up its worlds because it's just nothing but nonstop exploration. Like you could get lost for hours in a world in Kingdom Hearts 1, and in Kingdom Hearts 2 you would run into an invisible wall and it says, "No, go this way."
Yes, Kingdom Hearts 2 probably had the tightest gameplay out of anything in the series, but I still think that the original Kingdom Hearts was more creative, had more interesting worlds to explore, and had
Yes.
more to actually explore.
The
So,
exploration is
in
definitely
all
better
of
in the
the
first
games,
one because like you have so many different things to like you have to interact with a lot of things. Like you have to
yes, I
like
actually watched a gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 2 where a guy managed to play through the entire game without hitting the jump button once. And I feel like
yeah.
that says something about the level design. He kind of cheated in the Beauty and the Beast level where you have to go up the little blocks, but he still managed to do it without hitting the jump button, and he got through like the entire game without having to jump.
Yeah, well cuz
And that's the thing about
there's no platforming in the game, right? You're just kind of in hallways. There's no
yeah,
like nothing's
that's the
hidden.
thing about the original
Like
game.
even the treasure chests aren't really hidden in the second game because there's nowhere to
Yeah, in
hide
the
them.
original game, yeah, in the original game, it's like first and foremost, it was trying to be a platformer, and it does a lot of more cool things that way because like as you play more and unlock more like abilities to move around, like you'll unlock higher jumps, you'll unlock the ability to move in different ways, and that means that when you come back and start playing in different levels, you'll be able to like reach new places and do more platforming and do more things.
Hmm.
And like technically you can do that in Kingdom Hearts 2 as well, but like unlocking your movement never really unlocks anything. In the final version, like in the most current version of Kingdom Hearts 2, there's like some little special things that were added in. Like there's like an extra level that's essentially like a DLC zone where you can go in and there's a whole lot of platforming you can do in there and you need to
Oh
do a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit of
yeah.
platforming
The
in order to
Cave
make it
of
through.
Remembrance or whatever.
Exactly.
Um,
And there's also like some hidden collectibles that you need to level up your movement abilities in order to
yeah,
get
but
around.
those puzzle
But the
pieces
fact
are
that
stupid, and I don't care.
I like them, but the fact that
I like that they
everything was added
tried.
after the fact.
Yeah,
I think the fact that everything that requires you to move was added in after the fact kind of says a lot about the fact that
they're trying to
the
course
ability to move
correct.
around and explore was not really an integral part of Kingdom Hearts 2.
No.
In fact, there was even another mechanical change as far as menus go. So, like, a big problem that a lot of people had with the original Kingdom Hearts game is that it was so easy to get lost and forget what you were doing. So, something that they did to compensate for that in later games was to just have, like, a little journal that your character takes that it'll always tell you what you're doing, where to go, how many collectibles are in an area, and whether or not you've collected them all or not. Which, I mean, it's cool. I see the value in that. And I feel like that makes it. I feel like there are some big pluses to that. But in the original Kingdom Hearts game, you can explore and you can play this game for like literally years and still find cool new little things that you never knew were there.
Yeah,
Like, I played
there's
the
still
game
stuff.
like
Like recently, I found out that um, in Traverse Town in one of the hotels, you can hit if you hit the clock a certain amount of times, it'll just give you a treasure chest that I think has a mithril or something in it. And I'm like, I never knew this. Why did I
yeah,
never know? I've played this game so much.
yeah, it's crazy. So like I'm one of those I used so back when all the collections got re-released for like PlayStation 4 and everything like that, that was at a time period where I would only buy like one, maybe two video games a year, and I would just replay the same video games over and over again and just enjoy one video game as much as I possibly could. So I would play through like all the Kingdom Hearts games like 10 times. And I managed to play through the original Kingdom Hearts game like 10 times. And then it wasn't until like my last 2 or 3 playthroughs that I found out that the clock tower in Neverland gave you like a free super high level treasure every hour that you played. And like anytime I tried to bring that up to people, like there's like people who would say like, oh, you mean like the clock in the hotel, or oh, you just mean like the little chest with the puppies in it. And like there's just things. Well, I mean, everyone knows where the puppy chests are because everyone's like trying to save the puppies, but there's still like extra treasures hidden like everywhere.
Well, the puppies,
I saw a video
the
where
puppies
one person,
is the one thing that you collect that actually has the tally of how many you need and how many are left. Kingdom Hearts 2 and onward is when they start like every single collectible, every chest you could possibly open is documented, and I get that. I do appreciate that to some extent, but I also appreciate Kingdom Hearts 1 where it's just like, we are not holding your hand even a little bit. Like, figure it out on your own.
yeah, like it's almost two different systems. Like I almost feel like you can't compare the two games. Which is why whenever people, like whenever you're talking about the first Kingdom Hearts game and then people want to jump into the conversation and say, oh, well, Kingdom Hearts 2 is objectively the best video game in the entire Kingdom Hearts series. I mean, as soon as anybody says this is objectively the best, whatever, like I'm always going to roll my eyes a little bit.
I mean, I'm objectively the best host of this podcast, so that makes sense to me.
Not for long, because I now have other people who have seen Dinotopia, so we'll see how long that lasts.
Well, you're not going to do another Dinotopia episode, now are you?
We're going to do another episode on the animated Dinotopia movie. Do you want to be there for that, or do you want to keep talking?
I am the one that suggested that.
I'm the one who found out it existed. I will fight you.
I knew it existed, I just hadn't seen it.
This is going to be a fun episode.
Is it? Because I feel like we've barely talked about Kingdom Hearts.
We've talked a lot about Kingdom Hearts. We've thrown a bunch of shade at Kingdom Hearts 2, and that's going to be like great for I promise that if we ever get around to actually talking about Kingdom Hearts 2, if we ever get around to actually talking about Kingdom Hearts 2, I promise we will have nice things to say. But while we're talking about the strengths of Kingdom Hearts 1, we might throw a little bit more shade to some of the other Kingdom Hearts games. Yeah. So
I should
Kingdom
also
Hearts
preface
2
this
fans?
by saying I like Kingdom Hearts 2. I've also played Kingdom Hearts 2 a million times. It's a very fun game, and you can talk to Scrooge McDuck in it, which automatically makes it a top tier.
Yes,
but
Kingdom Hearts 2 is a good game, and the fact that it has some of the tightest combat in the series is super cool and super good. But we're not talking about Kingdom Hearts 2. We're not talking about how tight the combat is right now. We're talking about the original Kingdom Hearts game. So Kingdom Hearts 2 fans, please don't hate us. Like, comment, subscribe. Donate to us on Patreon. But we're talking about Kingdom Hearts right now.
If we have a Patreon and you're not telling me, I'm going to be so mad.
Wait till you hear about the OnlyFans.
Oh, I know about the OnlyFans. I live on that site. Edit that out. Please edit that out.
Yeah, sure, I'll edit that out.
You're not going to edit that out.
It's okay. Consider it edited out. It's fine. Okay, so I feel like as much as we've tried to give like a basic premise of what I feel like we've... So to give like a more like basic summary, Kingdom Hearts is a platformer / JRPG where you play as Sora and you explore all these worlds, and as you explore, you meet other party members. Like one of the first people that you meet is Donald and Goofy, and they form the rest of your main party. After you meet Donald and Goofy, you go out and you explore the rest of the worlds in the game, which, for the most part, are all Disney worlds. So you'll go to different places and you'll meet different Disney characters. Like you'll go to Agrabah and play with Aladdin. You'll go to Halloween Town and play through the events of The Nightmare Before Halloween and play with Jack Skellington.
The Nightmare Before
You'll go
Halloween.
to
I'm so tired of you.
But yeah, so essentially you go different places. You play with different characters from different Disney games. You level up your characters like any old RPG, and you unlock different skills. Your goal through the game is to save all the worlds because they're being attacked by the Heartless. So they're all the main enemies that you fight, and you're also trying to save your friends, like your friend group from the original place where you start out. There are a couple of other original characters named Riku and Kairi. And as you're exploring through all these worlds with Donald and Goofy, they're trying to find and save Mickey Mouse and also save all the other worlds. And you find Riku along the way. He ends up like falling to the dark side and working with the Heartless. And so the two of you are both trying to save Kairi, who has passed out and is essentially KO'd for the entire game. By the end of it, Riku gets possessed by the main bad guy of the series, and you find out that there's like some weird stuff going on with Kairi. Specifically, that there's sort of like been a soul bonding moment between Kairi and Sora, the main character. And so that doesn't really amount to much throughout this game, so don't worry about that too much. So you and Donald and Goofy have to fight Riku, fight the guy who's possessed him, and then after the big bad turns into like a big ass spaceship and you kick that thing's butt, then it's all cutscenes from there. And at the end of the game, spoilers for a game from 2002, you have to seal away like the realm of darkness or whatever, and Riku is in there, and apparently Mickey Mouse is in there too. All of those get sealed away. Sora has to make his way back home now and also try to save Riku because Kairi is on the home island, but he still has to get Riku out of the realm of darkness. I totally forgot to mention there's some Final Fantasy characters in this game as well.
You're not mentioning a lot of things that are going on. So
yeah, okay. I think the only other major
I feel like
things,
that's enough for now.
yeah, I think the only other major things that I forgot to listen is that there's a bunch of Disney villains from all the Disney worlds who have all teamed up, and they're also playing. They also have controlling interests in the Heartless. But you find out that the big bad who possesses Riku later is like pulling all of their strings and everything. You also meet like a bunch of different Final Fantasy characters in a bunch of different worlds along the way. They don't have a super big impact on the plot, but they are essentially supporting characters who are also some of Sora's friends, and they'll be more important later. Or maybe even less important. I mean, I don't. They're essentially background characters in the whole series. But the idea is you're playing some original characters who are playing essentially a 3D platformer style version of a Final Fantasy game, if you've ever played a Final Fantasy game before. And you get to meet a bunch of Final Fantasy characters, you get to meet a bunch of Disney characters, and that's essentially the quick pitch of the movie.
I mean, you're trying to explain Kingdom Hearts, and it's like, y'all know what this is. Like,
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts is famously difficult
with
to
the
explain.
Disney worlds, and like, you're best friends with Donald Duck, and we're gonna have a fun little hack and slash puzzle solving time. We're gonna get some Trinity treasures and fight monsters, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah, on the one hand, Kingdom Hearts lore is like famously obtuse and hard to like parse into. But on the other hand, the lore is not super important. It's just really a delivery mechanism for like this kid's going on an adventure. He's making a lot of friends. He's going to a lot of places and seeing a lot of cool things. And he also has to fight evil along the way. That's essentially the entirety of Kingdom Hearts that you really need to know. Everything else is just like the finer details of how he does that. And honestly, the original Kingdom Hearts game is probably the easiest to break into. Or the easiest lore to explain, at least. Definitely gets more complicated as the series goes on. It's probably simplest in the first Kingdom Hearts game, but essentially the entire series is just boy makes a lot of friends, wants to save his other friends. He's exploring places, seeing lots of cool things, and he's fighting the forces of evil and darkness along the way.
My friends are my power. I suppose it's a
So tell me, Belle.
nightmare. What? Go ahead. Yeah, what?
Tell me, Belle, what is your experience with Kingdom Hearts? How did you get into the series? You said you started with Kingdom Hearts 2. How did you eventually get to play original Kingdom Hearts?
I actually remember looking for the first Kingdom Hearts, because obviously if you have the second of a game that you really, really like, you kind of want to see the first one. And I remember looking for it for a while, and I ended up finding it, I think it was at a Best Buy that I was just at one
That sounds like a
point.
place where
And I was like, I was looking at the video games, and I see Kingdom Hearts 2, because that's the hot shit, was Kingdom Hearts 2. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's Kingdom Hearts 2 again. I've played this game a million times. I wonder where the first one is. And literally, on the shelf behind it, like, there's like Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 2, and it's on the same rack, but there is a Kingdom 1 game behind all of the Kingdom Hearts 2 games.
Oh dear.
So I'm like,
no one was supposed to.
Yeah, apparently I wasn't. It was a hidden treasure, and so I picked it up and I took it home, and then I played it, and it was really fun. And I still think I've played the second one more, just because child me liked things very simple and organized. But Kingdom Hearts 1 was so much fun, except for Monstro. I joked about it in the intro. I don't like Monstro. Everything looks the same, and you're just in this gross, pulsating whale, but it looks like fruitcake, and it's just disgusting.
So I'm gonna be honest, I don't have as much trouble with Monstro, but I think that's because I played it so many times, and also one of the achievements that that you get for the first Kingdom Hearts game requires you to kind of like speed through the entire thing. So I looked through I watched a couple speed runs.
Well, like, I know how to do it. I know how to get through it, because in general, when you're going through Monstro, the rule of thumb is whichever door you can see when you get into when you immediately enter one of the chambers is the door you have to go through.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. If I'm being honest, though, I kind of missed getting lost in there, because like the entire point is that it's supposed to be like a big giant maze, and it's a little obtuse, it's a little difficult to travel through, but like whenever I play it now and I can get through it like kind of quickly, I always feel like I'm missing out on part of that level, if that makes any sense.
I can understand that. And speaking of missing out on the level, I think it's really, really fun that in the first Kingdom Hearts games, you can just kind of skip over a lot of the worlds.
You can only skip 3 of the worlds.
I mean,
and even then you can't skip all 3.
That's a lot.
Actually, no. So there's 2 places where you can skip a world. So
you can skip Monstro entirely.
And you're right, I forgot about Monstro. You can skip Monstro. Well, okay. So in the first ring, there's an Alice in Wonderland world, a Tarzan world, and a Hercules world. You can skip one of those 3 worlds, but you can't skip more than one. And in the next ring, you have to play through the Aladdin world, but then you have the options of playing
you can completely skip.
You can skip
Little Mermaid. You can skip Jack Skellington. We have to skip one or the other, I think, but you can skip them entirely.
Correct. You can skip Monstro, Little Mermaid, or Nightmare Before Christmas. You cannot skip more than one.
Yes. But I think that's really, really fun.
And, I mean,
that you can just, if you just don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of odd that you don't get a whole lot of that in later games.
Yeah, because like the only skippable, I'm not talking about Kingdom Hearts 2 again, but I'm talking about Kingdom Hearts 2 again, because the only skippable level in that one is the Little Mermaid level, which is just a bad rhythm game.
I'll be honest, I kind of like the Little Mermaid level from Kingdom Hearts 2, but we're not here to talk about that right now. I knew you were going to say that. I thought it was fun. Fight me. Not important, though. In the first game, though, the Little Mermaid level, Atlantica, was awful. I was not enjoying myself in there. It's
I don't
always
have as big
weird.
a problem with that one. I know
It's a,
the swimming is very, very clunky, and the fighting is equally clunky because you have to swim around everywhere, and everything kind of just looks. It's a Monstro problem again because everything kind of just looks the same, and they kind of noticed because they have the markers everywhere. That's like an arrow to where Triton's palace is.
yes, they have the most non-natural looking signposts everywhere. They're just like giant tridents painted on the wall. Like you need to go this way. You need to go this way. It's not subtle, but it's necessary for them to be not subtle because that level is not easy to navigate through. And it's always
Like,
just a
talk
little
about a
bit
level that's
janky.
a giant maze.
Yes. It's any video game with like an underwater level that, especially an underwater level that forces you to move like radically differently than the rest of the game, is always going to be a little bit janky. And Kingdom Hearts suffers from that just like any other game with an underwater level.
Yeah, and this is also one of the Little Mermaid level is one of the levels that I don't have that big of an issue with it, but it is where I start having a problem with the game not holding your hand a little bit because I remember being stuck at the part where you have to like ride the dolphin to get to Ursula's lair because the game doesn't tell you anything. Like if you talk to Flounder, he'll say there's a big fish that can swim against currents or something. And
Yeah, that's one thing I like about the Kingdom Hearts series, though, as and something that you take advantage a lot of, especially in the games where there's a lot more going on. It's a little bit easier to get lost, and the game's not holding your hand as much. Is that if you talk to characters enough, you'll eventually find someone who will point you in the right direction. That's a cool little
yeah,
game
but
thing, and
then
anybody who is getting
another
into those
issue
games for
with
whatever reason, that's a good thing for you to be aware of going
but
in.
then another issue with that is that if you do talk to Flounder and he gives you that hint, it's not enough to just go find the dolphin you have to ride and ride the dolphin because it'll at one area it'll like go around in a circle like indefinitely and that's it. But then you have to go to a different area where all the currents are and then ride that dolphin and then he'll go against the current and take you where you need to go. So like it's an extra it's weirdly designed, I think. It's not terrible. Like obviously I still figured it out at a certain point, but that's one where I'm like, you could have done a little bit more here. But in
Yeah,
general, I think that the game does a very good job of like giving you enough hints without being like, you should go here, you have to do this, you have to do this, and then blocking you with invisible walls or whatever. Um, and it's more fun to get around the worlds because I'm thinking about like how in uh, the Halloween Town world, like you have to like jump through uh you gotta like jump through coffins
the graveyard.
and yeah, and you have to like light the lanterns and then the lifts will go up when the lanterns are lit and you have to like make the curly hill has to straighten out and then Oogie's Manor is a whole nother thing and then in Kingdom Hearts 2 it's just you just walk in a straight line.
Yes, I think the most complicated level in all of Kingdom Hearts 2 was the final Winnie the Pooh minigame. I think that was the only place where you might possibly get lost or turned around.
Oh, that's the spooky cave. Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh for best final dungeon design.
Which the spooky cave is based off of that like crystal cave they go into in Pooh's Grand Adventure, The Search for Christopher Robin. Correct? Am I correct in assuming that?
If I just say yes, will you take my word for it?
Probably.
I don't
I don't
know.
know if I've ever gotten confirmation on this, but ever since I was a kid playing it, I'm like, this is the cave from Pooh's Grand Adventure, and then nobody knows what
Belle,
I'm talking about.
Belle, if I needed to confirm the lore of Winnie the Pooh, you are the person who I would be asking these questions to. If you're asking me these questions, I just need to say, I don't know.
I have some sick Winnie the Pooh lore for you.
Tell me about the Heffalump.
Which Heffalump? Oh, the new one, Lumpy. That's like he's big and purple and friendly, and he's
Correct.
like
This is going to be our dinosaur fact for the
Oh,
episode. I think that's
God.
our running thing.
I mean, if you want another dinosaur fact, I can give you another dinosaur fact.
Now that I've said that, I do want like an actual legit dinosaur fact.
Okay.
Surprise me with one or the other though. Either a heffalump fact or a
It's gonna
dinosaur
be a
fact.
dinosaur
And then we have
fact
to get
because
moving.
um, here's a fun one that's kind of like a little bit of an oddball. The Carnotaurus is it's a big ooh, is it a theropod? I'm actually not sure. Leave this in the final edit because I'm an idiot. But Carnosaurus is a big carnivorous predator, and it has very small arms, like similar to a T-Rex, except the T-Rex actually has arms that kind of make sense. Carnotaurus, we're not sure why its arms are like it is. They're just small and they're pointed backwards. It's insane. And some people think they're used for mating or communication or something because they serve absolutely no purpose.
Just like me, I serve no
So there's your
purpose.
dinosaur fact. There's your weird Google Carnotaurus and just look at its big dumb arms. They make me smile every time I see them.
I will probably do that while editing this
Yeah.
episode.
Um, Here's a fun question. What's your favorite world in Kingdom Hearts 1?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say I feel weird calling it Kingdom Hearts 1 because there's no 1 in the name. So that's why you'll always hear me calling it like just Kingdom Hearts or Kingdom Hearts Original Recipe. But to answer your question, instead of being obtuse, I think aesthetic wise, it's going to be Nightmare Before Christmas, the Halloween Town
Okay.
world, just because I love the spooky
No, that's a
things.
good one.
But I don't know, as far as level design. What's
That's a
that?
good one. Like, it's
It
very
is a very
solid.
good one. But design wise, I think my favorite level, like just from like a gameplay design standpoint, might be Agrabah. I liked how that was also a maze, but it was a very the way it was set up with like all the different levels and all the different buildings and how there's a lot of climbing up and down and you could always like see where you needed to go. It was pretty cool, and I always have fun jumping around on top of the buildings in Agrabah, and I also enjoy going through a lot of the Cave of Wonders
You know,
places. How about you? What's your favorite
those
level?
are both very good answers. My favorite.
Wait. Are our choices stuck to the Disney worlds?
No, I just said favorite world. Like, what's your favorite place to be in Kingdom Hearts?
Oh, okay, well, Hollow
Okay.
Bastion. But tell me your answer.
My answer is actually Traverse Town. I love Traverse Town.
I see we both picked original
We
worlds.
we did, which is interesting. And both of our least favorites are Disney worlds, but I quite like Traverse Town. I think it's really interesting. One, the fact that it's just a giant refugee camp essentially.
Yes, and there's more lore about how that works as a refugee camp later in
Yep.
the series, and I think that's one of the games you actually haven't played.
Yes, I've heard about this, but I have not played the game.
Well, yes, that concept does get expanded on
Yeah,
later.
which I mean, I love that idea. I love that people just go there when they have nowhere else to go. I like how you like. There's surprisingly a lot to do. Like I mentioned, the clock in the hotel. Merlin the magician is there. The fairy godmother will give you summon gems. All your Final Fantasy characters are going to be staying there. Like Huey, Dewey, and Louie will sell you potions and stuff. If you
Yes,
go to
I think
Monstro
Traverse
and you
Town.
save Geppetto and Pinocchio, and then later on they move into a house in Traverse Town, and they'll like give you gummy ship blueprints so you can build gummy ships. The Dalmatians are there, so you can go back to their house and like look at all of the puppies you have collected. It like there's so much of this world is so wonderfully thought out.
Yeah, I think Traverse Town also had a lot of mysteries that piqued my interest a little bit more. Like Hollow Bastion is also like full of little mysteries. You're like, ooh, I wonder what this is all about. But the whole thing about Traverse Town, I feel like there's a lot more stuff because like it felt like such a normal place, and then like there were things like strange things in the hotel, strange
Hmm.
murals, and big blocks that would turn around and fountains that looked like they meant something. And this was all in like what was essentially what looked like just a regular town that people were hanging out in. And like while Hollow Bastion also had a lot of really mysterious stuff that was really cool to check out and think, oh, I wonder why that's that thing. Like the whole place felt like it was just one big mystery instead of a lot of little mysteries
I think I
speckled
think that's
around the
what I also like
place.
about Traverse Town because it's the only world you go to where the entire world actually feels lived in.
Yes, because it's NPCs.
Well, I mean that, and also the fact that like there are houses, there are hotels, there are shops. Like you can,
With lights on,
yeah,
too.
like you go around and you're like, this is a place where I can just see people being. Like if the Heartless weren't here destroying everything, people would be, taking a walk by that lady in the tramp fountain, or going or staying at the hotels, and like it's so cool. Like Traverse Town is so cool, and there's so many different like you can go down some back alleys, or there's like back doors through the hotel to get to certain places, and like the three districts all connect. And, like it's so cool. It's so fun. I love Traverse Town.
Yes, the fact that like Agrabah has like buildings everywhere and like shops everywhere, but you can only go inside one building, and there's so little going on anywhere else that in a cutscene where the princess of Agrabah has to hide somewhere, she's just hiding behind a couple
Just hiding in
pots.
a corner.
I think says a lot to the fact that it feels like people don't belong there. It feels like a ghost town that was just made as a jungle gym.
Jafar, she
And there's
disappeared
just
like magic. She's right there, dude. What are you talking about?
yes, not inside a building or anything like that. Not like hiding like behind a stall
Did you
even.
know there are actually
It's a whole last thing.
NPCs in the bazaar in Agrabah at a certain point in the game?
Um, I don't remember there being NPCs at there.
No,
Excuse me, I don't remember there being NPCs there at any
yeah,
point.
no, because it's only in a certain point in the game, and I forget what exactly it is, but there are people that show up that are just reskins of, like, one of them's a reskinned Waka, one of them is a reskin of the lady from Traverse Town that's in front of the candles that you have to put out, but like they're they're there for a little bit.
Okay,
I
that's
know.
interesting.
Again, little things in this game that you're just like, I never knew about this. That's insane.
Oh, another thing I have to ask you. What version of the game have you played? I assume you've played the original version, but did you manage to play the final mix at any point or
I
no?
have not played the final mix. No, I've only played the original version. Which I say the original version, but like the American original version, which had things that the Japanese version didn't have. Because like there's optional bosses, like Kurt
So,
Ziza is a was only in the American release. The Japanese release of Kingdom Hearts didn't have that. Kurt Ziza being an optional boss that you
I
could
think it's
fight in the deserts of Agrabah, that was actually named after a guy who won a sweepstakes.
I do think it's worth mentioning just in case there's anybody listening who's not familiar with all the complicated releases of Kingdom Hearts. So the games get released in Japan, and then after people play them for a bit, give a little bit of feedback, they get updated a bit and then sent out to a wider audience, and then the people in North America get it, and then everyone's playing it for a while, everyone's giving a little bit of feedback, and the people who are making the games are planning and getting ready for the next game. So then after a while, they released a another Japanese version of the game that they only sold in Japan called the Final Mix. And this was essentially just a touched up version of the game that also had like a whole bunch of extra content, including like secret bosses that would tease some of the next couple of games and things like that. And
They
then
also changed some like
after
quality of
a
life
long time,
things. Like they added in the
exactly,
like the triangle
that was like some of
button
the touch ups
instead
and
of
stuff
having
they
to
did to the
select
base
it
game.
from the menu. You can just press triangle to interact with stuff.
Yeah, and so these were Japan exclusive for a while until within the past, like I think they started coming out in like 2014 or something like that. all the Kingdom Hearts games started getting released as these collections. They were called like remix collections, and these all included the most up to date versions of the game, and they were released all over. So this means that you could get a North American version of the Final Mix and play Final Mix Kingdom Hearts and fight all the secret bosses and everything in English. And this was all to get everyone caught up to speed on all the things about all the games while Kingdom Hearts 3 was getting ready to come out. It also means it's really easy for anybody who wants to get into these game series. Now's a really good time to do that. I think you can get like the first six, or you can get 4 out of the first 6 games, and like little movies that'll tell you everything you need to know about the other 2 games. But essentially, you can experience the first 6 games in the entire series just by grabbing like one disc or buying it all in one place. But you're saying that you haven't gotten a chance to do that yet. You've only played the original, is that right?
Correct. I played Kingdom Hearts, and I've played
Okay.
Kingdom Hearts 2. Both of them just the American releases that we had back in the 2000s.
Yes. I remember I played Kingdom Hearts 2, and then I played Kingdom Hearts 1 at a friend's place. And then by the time I was getting to the end of that game, and I realized, wait a minute, I haven't even seen some of these characters were in Kingdom Hearts 2 and things like that. I realized, oh, the games that come out like in between are a lot more important than I thought. And that sort of like had me sigh and give up my thought. Okay, so there's no way I'm ever going to be able to play Kingdom Hearts 3 because I'm not going to be able to play all of these. And then one day I walk into a different friend's place and he's sitting there with like a big list of Kingdom Hearts games on the screen. I'm like, wait, you need to explain this to me. And he told me about all the collections and everything, all the collections of the old games. And that breathed new life into my soul. I was able to grab some of those collections, I was able to get caught up, and I was able to be hyped out of my mind for Kingdom Hearts 3 when it finally came out, and I was able to ride that train. Played a big part of my ability to experience these games. So bringing it back a bit, the level Hollow Bastion is one of the later levels in the game. It's where a lot of the endgame content happens. It's essentially this giant broken down castle. And there's some hints that it has a lot of larger story implications that do get explored in later games. But for this game, you're essentially just going through an abandoned castle, finding lots of like weird little hints in the library, and you're exploring through locations that have been kind of teased at other points throughout the game, especially in the final version. You see, in the final version, you see some extra cutscenes where you see Riku show up here after everyone leaves their original home place. And you see him get involved here, but that doesn't necessarily involve a lot of the mysteries that you get wrapped up in later. And there's also a lot of interesting mechanics going on here. Like, you're working with, like, a bunch of elevators. There's a bunch of bubbles that'll, like, transport you towards different places. And, you know, as another person who is also Bubbles, like, I approve. The bubbles are also one of the special secrets in the game. I don't know if you've ever gotten a chance to do this. If anyone else doesn't already know about the secret of the bubbles, try casting every kind of magic spell you can think of
I
on
know.
them. One of them will do
I
something.
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's one of like the first secrets that everyone discovers in Kingdom Hearts game. If you've not figured out anything fancy that the bubbles do, just cast magic spells on them, see what happens. You'll find something that does something, and you'll have fun with that, I promise.
Yes, I also like how
That's
the
another thing.
puzzles you can actually kind of skip. There is a way to cheat it if you at a certain point you have to summon Dumbo, and because he can fly, you have to fly him up as close as you can get to one of the ledges, and then let the summon run out, and then you jump off of him, and then you'll grab onto the ledge, and then you can like skip that whole like lift shop puzzle where you have to like alter the blocks to create stairs. You can just skip that entirely, which that's a fun little cheat.
That sounds like a speedrunner tactic.
It's also a runner of
Kinda.
somebody who really doesn't like going through the lift shop over and over again. Some of those last way too long for where they get you.
Okay. Well, if it's your first time playing through, I recommend trying it out. But if you get frustrated, try the speedrunner hack, or whatever the kids
Well, of
call
course,
it.
try it out, but at a certain point, I'm just like, I don't need to watch you ride this elevator, Sora. Can we just move this one along?
However, all the like mechanics and stuff that get introduced in Hollow Bastion so close to the end of the game is another thing that I really like about the first Kingdom
Yeah.
Hearts game. Is that I feel like the levels are a lot more unique, and that a lot of them have like special individual mechanics that are specific just to these levels. Kind of like in Hollow Bastion, we have all the elevators and the
Yeah.
bubbles and the blocks that move up and down. One of my favorite things about this
And
game, a lot of it is present in Hollow Bastion.
I like the basement where I believe this is like one of the only parts of the game where you specifically need a party member that isn't Donald Duck or Goofy to get through it. Because in the basement there are walls that
There's a couple
that
like that.
only the Beast can break through because he's a giant goat buffalo man. Uh, so you have to have him in your party at a certain point, even if you have Donald and Goofy back.
Yes, there's also some places like that in the Cave of Wonders. You can actually only finish the story in Cave of Wonders in the Aladdin world if you have Aladdin in
That's
your
right. That's
party.
right. Because Aladdin and Abu have to do stuff.
They have to do some
Yeah.
robbery.
I also think it's very fun. Speaking of the Cave of Wonders level, that you can just like the ending where you where the cave is collapsing and you're riding on the magic carpet. You just not touch the controller. You just like go to the bathroom or grab a drink or whatever. Because you can't really die there. Like nothing. Like it's just for show. It's just because there's a scene like that in the movie, so they put it in the game.
Yes, I remember I was playing on the highest difficulty and I was wondering, like, is it even possible to die here? So I just tried to dodge all the health pickups and take all the damage I could, and I still
Yeah,
survived.
you're you cannot die on that part.
Oh well, it's a fun showpiece.
It is. I like them going to because the first game of Kingdom Hearts doesn't like it doesn't do this thing that gets very boring for me where they just when you go to a Disney World they just do the movie again. The first Kingdom Hearts doesn't really do that. Like they try to integrate the worlds a little bit better.
Yes, and because all of the Disney princesses and all of the worlds are important and are present in Hollow Bastion later, that means that and because you're fighting all the villains from all these worlds, like they're just a lot more integrated in general.
Yeah,
I don't think we're saying anything on here that any other criticism of Kingdom Hearts has said before.
that's
I mean,
probably true.
the original Kingdom Hearts game, Kingdom Hearts original recipe is just as far as integrating all the Disney stuff into the story. I mean, there is a little bit of that in other games, but you see it the most in
Yeah.
original Kingdom
With
Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts, pretty much
For sure,
everywhere you go,
definitely.
you're reminded of like Maleficent and the like the Council of Villains, or like Riku's going to be doing something, or like every single place you go to has something going on, even if it's just little, even if it's like when you're in the Little Mermaid world and Triton starts yelling at you about how he doesn't like the Keyblade wielders or whatever. It's just like everything feels like you're supposed to be here, where in some other Kingdom Hearts games, the Disney World just kind of feels like busy work.
Yeah, all of the worlds in the original Kingdom Hearts game, except for the island that you start off on, all feature some sort of Disney something there. Like in Traverse Town, you have the Lady in the Tramp fountain. You have like Merlin living there. There's a bunch of Disney characters in there. And then like the next location that's exclusive to the game is Hollow Bastion. And I mean, tons of Disney characters there. I don't think there's quite as much Disney like naturally worked into the castle itself. But then like even when you get to the final dungeon, at the end of the world is what the dungeon's
Yep.
called. There's a big boss fight there. It's just Chernabog, and it feels like the most natural thing. Like that Chernabog basically looks like a giant version of the Heartless.
It's it's yeah, they integrate the Disney and the Kingdom Hearts very, very well in the first game. Like they don't do I don't at least in my experience, they don't do it quite as seamlessly because like there are some worlds you go to, like the original worlds, like Hollow Bastion, like you said, like this is a world that exists on their own, but there's also Disney stuff going on here. Like you meet the Beast there, and he like swam through space or something because he loves Belle so much. And then Maleficent is using it as her base of operations, and she's stealing all the Disney princesses. And like, there's enough going
Yeah, and
on.
it doesn't feel super odd to
No, like none of it's
it doesn't feel super odd to see them there. Like you see Maleficent like running the castle, and you're like, okay, that
yeah.
makes sense. I can see Maleficent being in a castle like this. I can see myself needing to navigate through this with someone like Beast for
Yep.
help.
And it's like even when you're in a world that is a Disney world, there's still Kingdom Hearts story happening. Like you're in Monstro and Riku, Riku shows up and like tries to steal Pinocchio for some reason. And like there's constant reminder that there is a story happening. Or
Yes.
Neverland, which is actually just Captain Hook's ship, which is kind of weird. But uh, Neverland, there's like Riku and Kairi and Sora, like they're all there, and like the plot is progressing. And then I just remember Kingdom Hearts 2, where it just kind of feels like the Disney worlds happen, and then you move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, like, of course, like, it's Kingdom Hearts storytelling. There is some awkwardness to it. Like, as soon
Naturally,
as they try to start wrapping things up, you're like, okay, That's not super graceful, but I mean, I'm here for it. It's the end of the story. We're wrapping things up. It's a little bit messy. It's fine. We're just rolling with it. Like, I mean, like, the most. I feel like one of the parts that everyone likes to remember from the game is when you find out that Kairi and Sora got kind of soul bonded, and Kairi's heart ended up inside of Sora, and like he's sort of sitting there and just says Kairi's inside me. Like that has been like mean to hell and
yep.
back, and like it's not the best writing, but well, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and all of a sudden try to justify Kingdom Hearts writing because
Oh
like
no, the Kingdom Hearts games,
people
for
who
as much as we praise them, are awkward as hell. Like the dialogue is almost always stilted, and the actors are fine. Like, and a lot of the Disney actors they get in the American versions are the official actors for these characters. Like Bill Farmer is doing Goofy, and Tony Anselmo is Donald Duck, and like they're the official characters, but they have to say crazy stuff
yeah,
like
but I think credit where credit is
isn't
due.
Cloud and aren't
Credit where
Cloud and
credit is due.
Sephiroth the
Even
same
when
person or something? And it's like you're like the dialogue is so stilted and awkward.
But hey, credit where credit is due. I think even with all of the awkwardness that's in Kingdom Hearts writing, it knows what it
Oh yeah,
is
no.
and it's running with that and it's sincere and it's not trying to be too goofy or anything like that. And the
Not it's
sincerity
not
means I
it's
can
not
buy
trying to
into
be
it.
too
I feel
goofy.
like if someone else
There's a lot of goofy in this game. I don't know what you're talking about.
there's a lot of goofy in this game, yes. But there's also more importantly there's sincerity. And that's a big deal. I feel like whenever a lot of people talk about this game, they always like there's a lot of undercutting and like almost a level of like maybe even cynicism. But
Well, I feel like when most people talk
in the
about this
end,
game, they're talking they're like, isn't it weird that Cloud Strife and Donald Duck are in a video game together? Yeah, it's weird. That's the point. Like, it's so unusual, and it still fits together so well.
yeah, like I always tell people, Kingdom Hearts plot and Kingdom Hearts lore is less about understanding and more about feeling. The game doesn't really care whether or not you understand what's going on, so long as you feel what's going on. And that kind of segues into something else that I really want to talk about in this game, which is the music. That plays a really big part in influencing like what you feel in
Yep.
the game. Like the music in this game is like famously good, and it hits a lot of those emotional beats home. So even when people are like saying really awkward dialogue or things like that, you feel it because it is sincere, it is heartfelt, it's got really good music behind. I heard someone say that if the music was not as good as it was, that on its own, if nothing else was changed, if the music was not as good, that might have undercut the entire game. And I might actually agree with that. As much as I love the rest of the game, that was a good point that if the music was not as good, it might have fundamentally altered the way I took it all in and interpreted it. What are your thoughts on that and on the
Um,
music in general?
well, one, music is the best part about the game. It's I'm inclined to agree with you because it's a ridiculous premise. Which, if it's a ridiculous enough premise, I'm already sold. But the fact that the music score just takes it so seriously, and most of that
Yes. So
is
there,
Yoko Shimomura just being amazing at what she does.
yes, Yoko Shimomura is the composer who composes almost all of the music for the game. Like everything that you hear while playing the game is all Yoko Shimomura music. And she's also done a lot of work on Final Fantasy. She essentially does like really great compositional pieces, and there's a lot of fun music throughout the game. Battle music is like it's all like so catchy, so good. If nothing else, just like listen to the soundtrack for Kingdom Hearts. But probably the biggest standout for the Kingdom Hearts games is the theme song, or alternatively theme songs. But if we're talking about Kingdom Hearts, the original one, then just the theme as done by Utada Hikaru, Japanese pop
It is
artist.
it's a very well done song. It's so like it's written in such a way it's so simple and so clean.
You're terrible.
I'm
But yes,
glad you
honestly,
didn't
if
agree
you're
with me.
an hour, if if you're an hour into two nerds talking about Kingdom Hearts and you are not convinced about whether or not you want to play the game yet already, or whether or not you have any level of interest in this game, check out the opening theme, like where it's Utada Hikaru's theme song, simple and clean, as just played over like little clips and scenes from the game. That like is essentially the entire mood of the game. And however you feel about what happens in the game, like that one theme and the opening is really good at telling you essentially what you're in for and what all the emotional beats are. And essentially, that's like the thesis of the game, if that makes sense. Do you want to add anything else about the music before we jump into final thoughts and wrap up?
Um, no, I want to end my music thoughts on my stellar joke, the only joke I've told this entire this entire recording.
You're fine. Alright then. Final thoughts on the game. It's Kingdom Hearts. You and I are both super fond of Kingdom Hearts. Original game. What are some of your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is this sucks. Don't buy it. Why would you even? Like, God, like Mickey Mouse is here. Who cares? I don't even. Squall Leonard? Who's this chump? No, this game is really, really fun, and I like it. And it's an awkward mishmash, but it's an awkward mishmash that I am in love with.
Yeah, I'm definitely biased because this game was something that I've been interested in since, I was young child. But, like, I still feel like it holds up pretty well. It's still so heartfelt and so
It's
sincere.
Kingdom Hearts, Alex.
And precisely. It's heartfelt, it's sincere, it's also super creative, and it's an interesting little. It's an interesting little mishmash. Even though it's just like two corporate entities, like literally just like smashing brands together. A lot of creativity and sincerity still manages to like cover all that up. Like I was about to say like it shines through, but like it's not even shining through. Like it is like the fact like all the creativity and the sincerity is like what this game is at its core. And all the Disney brands and Final Fantasy brands are just like backdrop. So I think this game holds up a lot. It's a game that I love going back to replay, and it's the start of what I think is a really cool series, and one that I enjoy keeping up with to this day. So I think that is that. That is it for our third episode of the Magpie and Bunny podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope y'all are interested in hanging out with us for the next episode. We are not sending out an episode next week. We are going back to what we were originally intended to release an episode every other week. So, not next week, but the following week, we are going to be talking about the Garbage Pail Kids cartoon. From, I believe it's also from 1986, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but we'll talk more about that
cartoon,
in 2 weeks.
Which was my recommendation for a thing that we do, and Bubbles agreed, so y'all are welcome.
Yes, y'all can blame Belle for this. So please join us in 2 weeks when we talk about the Garbage Pail Kids cartoon. In the meantime, thanks for checking us out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on Parler. If you're having trouble with the app, just delete it from your phone and re-download it from the App Store. It'll start working fine. Belle, say goodbye.
No, you can't tell me what to do.
Okay, fine. Bye.
I didn't do a single terrible Goofy impression the whole time. Gosh, Sora, I haven't heard my son Max's voice in years. Can we please go back to Disney Castle? Oh shit, I was still recording.